Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Future Television. I'm Lina Tamim and these are today's headlines. Relatives of the captive Lebanese policeman Pierre Jaja blocked the Barka Road in the Bekaa Valley and threatened to shut down Beirut's vital airport road. ISIL fighters intensify their attacks on the Syrian border town of Kobani. And Pope Francis formally opens a landmark synod of bishops from around the world, which will review church teaching on family and marriage. Relatives of the captive Lebanese policeman Pierre Jaja have blocked the Barka Road in the Bekaa Valley and threatened to shut down Beirut's vital airport road over the government's failure to secure his release. Closing the airport road often leaves travelers stranded by blocking access to the country's only international airport. Other family members said they have been collaborating with the relatives of other captives to block roads, saying their unity cannot be hampered by sectarian affiliation. Speaking at the protests, Barka's mayor said he supported the family's actions and criticized the government for their weak efforts to secure their release. Jaja's family said they had received a recording from their son on Saturday in which he said he was doing well, but called on his relatives to take wider action for the sake of his release. Jaja was kidnapped along with more than 30 other servicemen by militants from the Nusra Front and ISIS during August clashes with the Lebanese army in Arsal. Israeli soldiers have fired at a Lebanese army patrol in the Sheba Farms area near the border, wounding one soldier. Security sources say the Israeli soldiers opened fire on the Lebanese troops after they tried to prevent an Israeli patrol from crossing into Lebanon. In a statement posted on Twitter, the Israeli military, on the other hand, claims it shot at two people it discovered infiltrating Israeli territory from Lebanon. The army is coordinating with the United Nations interim forces in Lebanon to investigate the incident. The deputy head of the Higher Shiite Islamic Council, Sheikh Abdel Amir Kabalan, has called on the Lebanese to distance themselves from strife and to back the army. During his sermon on the occasion of Eid al-Adha, Kabalan said he hoped for peace and security. He also urged the Lebanese to back the military, which has been fighting militants from the border with Syria for the past 2 months. The Mufti said that Lebanon suffers from financial, moral, cultural, social, and sectarian crimes that rob the people. He called for the election of a new president as soon as possible and for the release of the army soldiers and policemen held hostage by extremist militants on the northeastern border. Fighters from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant are shelling the Kurdish town of Kobani on the Syrian-Turkish border. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said ISIL fired at least 10 rockets into the town, known as Ain al-Arab in Arabic. The fighters were also firing tank shells and mortar bombs as they tried to break the Kurds' hold on the town. ISIL fighters seized part of a strategic hill overlooking the town late on Saturday, a monitor said, but their progress was slowed by new strikes from the coalition of Washington and Arab allies. Fighting for Kobani has raged for weeks, but Kurdish fighters have managed to hold the town as dozens of surrounding villages fell to ISIL. Despite the ongoing conflict in Syria, new projects are launched in the capital Damascus. A new project called Uptown opened lately with a capital of $40 million and job opportunities for more than 2,000 employees. With the population increase caused by the refuge of people to Damascus and the lack of activities, the project was a window of entertainment in the city. The project includes restaurants, old card exhibitions, games, cinemas, as well as different kinds of sports. The project does not only attract people, but also investors who took part in the project by opening branches of their companies. Experts say the increase in the number of investments in the country is related to an atmosphere of relief among investors, especially after the international switch of position towards the war in the country. And coming up next, police find a mass grave near the Mexican town of Iguala. More details after the break. Welcome back. A British man who had been held hostage by militants in Libya has been released. David Bolem was released days after the killing of a British hostage aid worker, Alan Hanning, by Islamic State militants fighting in Iraq and Syria, the latest in a series of such murders that have been filmed and posted online. British media reported that Bolem had been taken hostage in May. He appeared in a video posted online pleading for his life, said to have been taken on August the 28th. The BBC says Boulam's release was secured through the payment of a ransom facilitated by local political factions in the eastern Libyan city of Benghazi, where he worked as a teacher. Moving on to Africa, Somali troops backed by African Union forces have taken up positions overlooking the town of Barawe, key to the financing of al-Shabaab fighters. The fight against the armed group continued today after it was stepped up the previous day. Reporters on the ground say several towns and villages are now under government control. Pope Francis has formally opened a global assembly of Roman Catholic bishops by presiding over a Mass in St. Peter's Basilica. During his homily, the Pope took the opportunity to urge the bishops not to get hung up on clever ideas, but to work with freedom and creativity. The session will prepare the way for a larger gathering of Catholic clerics next year and could become a milestone in the clash between conservatives and liberals over the future direction of a church that the Pope has insisted must become less bureaucratic and theologically esoteric. The two-week synod on the theme of the family will be attended by more than 250 people, nearly all of them bishops of the 1.2 billion member church, and also 13 married couples. A Monday deadline for protesters to clear Hong Kong's barricaded streets is looming as the territory's Beijing-backed leader claimed the disorder risked serious consequences for public safety. Officials say the government is determined to take all necessary actions to restore social order and allow residents to return to their normal life and work. Protesters calling for universal suffrage have camped out in several commercial districts of the city, blocking roads and access to government offices. Only a few hundred were on the streets early this afternoon in the downtown Admiralty district near the government headquarters. Hours earlier, tens of thousands had turned out there in the biggest gathering yet of the week-long protest. And now for some news around the world in brief. Bulgarians have started voting in a parliamentary election, hoping a new government will end a political stalemate, revive the economy, and find ways to ease Moscow's grip on the country's energy supplies. Opinion polls predict the biggest vote winner in today's election will be the center-right Europe Party, led by former Prime Minister Boyko Borisov, who resigned after mass anti-corruption protests in February of 2013. Brazilians are preparing to vote in today's presidential elections, with the main candidates busy making a final push. Dilma Rousseff, Brazil's incumbent president, leads the opinion polls in the election run-up, followed by Aécio Neves and Marina Silva, an environmentalist. Surveys show that Rousseff is holding on to her commanding lead with 44% voter support. Jean-Claude Baby Doc Duvalier, who ruled Haiti from 1971 until he fled the country in 1986, has died of a heart attack aged 63. The death of Duvalier, who returned to Haiti in 2011 after 25 years of exile, was announced by Florence Guillaume Duperval, the nation's health minister. President Michel Martelly, reacting on Twitter, called him an authentic son of Haiti and sent his sincere condolences to the family and to the nation. A clandestine grave site with multiple burial pits holding an undetermined number of bodies has been found outside a town in Mexico's Guerrero state, where violence last week resulted in 6 deaths and the disappearance of 43 students. Officials say the remains will be sent to Mexico's forensic service to determine whether or not the corpses match those of the missing students. While there was no official count, Reuters reported that the remains of up to 20 people were found. A number of the Mexican government's National Human Rights Commission says he believes the remains found in 6 burial pits were indeed those of the missing students. He said the bodies were burned and looked as if they were put into the pits recently. The graves were found on a hillside in rugged territory of Iguala's poor Pueblo Viejo district and was heavily guarded by dozens of soldiers, Marines, federal and state police who kept journalists away from the site. This past year, conflict has pushed more people to flee than at any other time since the Second World War. UNHCR and its partners are facing immense challenges while the unmet needs continue to mount. The Nansen Refugee Award has marked its 60th anniversary this year and is UNHCR's top humanitarian honor. A courageous Colombian women's rights network, Butterflies, has received the award for its outstanding work to help victims of forced displacement and sexual abuse in Buenaventura, Colombia. As a staunch advocate for ending sexual violence and conflict, Special Envoy for the UNHCR, Angelina Jolie, praised the work of the women of Butterflies in a special recorded message at the 2014 Nansen Refugee Awards ceremony.
Bloody upheavals.
Butterflies. These heroic women live and work in one of the most violent and dangerous places on Earth. In their circumstances, we would all have our work cut out for us simply trying to survive and take care of our families. But for the Mariposas, that is not enough. With exceptional courage, they seek out women whose lives are in danger, sometimes even sheltering them in their own homes. In particular, they help survivors of sexual violence. Wherever there is conflict, rape is used as a weapon to terrorize and intimidate. It causes horrific injuries. It inflicts a lifetime of suffering. It prevents many young girls from completing their education and following their dreams. For them, the butterflies can represent the difference between life and death, hope and despair. They are on the ground, recording the facts, helping survivors to access education, skills, and justice, and to change their lives. Women are incredibly vulnerable during conflict. They can indeed sometimes seem like butterflies, fragile, easily crushed. But like butterflies, they are also a symbol of hope, of regeneration, of new life. They stand for generosity, selflessness, and of survival against the odds, even in the bleakest of landscapes. The Mariposas draw on their strength as women to help thousands of vulnerable people who would otherwise have no rights and no protection. They richly deserve this award. I hope that it brings more international support for their work so that they can help more women find safety, and in particular to build the safe house that they need. I hope it helps more people to understand everywhere that we have to change attitudes to sexual violence and to end impunity for these crimes. And above all, I hope it will give hope and heart to survivors and to human rights defenders in Buenaventura and across Colombia and our world.
A drone captured molten lava and ash spewing from Iceland's powerful Bardarbunga volcano as it continued to erupt. Aerial footage shot in September shows massive lava flows cascading down the side of the mountain. A look inside the crater of the volcano shows lava being spewed hundreds of feet in the air. Airspace around the volcano was closed, but officials said commercial air traffic was not affected. Check it out. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Relatives of the captive Lebanese policeman Pierre Jaja blocked the Barka Road in the Bekaa Valley and threatened to shut down Beirut's vital airport road. ISIL fighters intensify their attacks on the Syrian border town of Kobani. And finally, Pope Francis formally opens a landmark synod of bishops from around the world, which will review church teaching on the family and marriage. Those are your top stories for today. I'm Linda Simim, wishing you all a very happy holiday.